Well, hello, all you shiny, happy people. 'Tis the Reverend. Who would have thunk it? Surely every single one of you by now. So, to continue the reading of the stories in my collection, Haunted Spaghetti, I had to stop and look at the cover. Let's just say the morning routine was surprisingly caring this morning. All right. I have rearranged some things in my productive area, and the lighting isn't quite what I need it to be. Hang on just a second. Hang on. Okay, there we go. Oh, the poot chair. We all love the poot chair. Yeah, I'm not necessarily one of those guys who enjoys a lot of artificial overhead lighting in their home. I prefer natural light. That's what windows are for, shades, whatever. Except for a small lamp for reading is nice. But I have always hated overhead lighting. I don't know why. I would rather have a house full of just windows and lamps. You know, just me. Perhaps it tis the tism. Who knows? Okay, this story. Now, there's no poetry today. This story is titled Gimme Shelter. I don't remember a whole lot about this story, to be honest. So it's like I'm going to be reading it for the first time right along with you all. No, seriously, I do remember what this is. This is there was a small little publishing group that wanted to put out just a nice, quick little, I guess, offering of short stories, just to, to kick off the beginning of summer. This was a couple of years ago, and it was free. So they did it in a PDF, and they also printed some physical copies as well, and they were just free. Just hey, thank you for being a reader. Kinda free. We love you guys. We don't do this for the money, obviously, because there's no money to be made in it anymore. We just do it because we're a bunch of badasses. That's why. Okay. This is anyway. This short story is titled "Gimme Shelter," and I don't know why, but that Rolling Stones song got in my head while I was writing this and just kept going on and on and on. And what's even worse is I hate the Rolling Stones. I guess I don't hate them, but I would never make an effort to see the Rolling Stones or purchase any of their music. There's a few of their songs over the years that I enjoy on the radio 10, 1,500 times a day, because that's all the radio stations seem to play on repeat there for a minute back, and well, all throughout my life. So good God, man. When I was a kid, I thought the Rolling Stones were in their 50s. Now that I'm 50, how are they still alive? That's somebody signed one hell of a deal to get immortality. Perhaps Keith Richards and Mick Jagger are Highlanders, and they're just holding off on the gathering for as long as they can to milk the music world dry, and then they'll fight. Who's going to win? If Keith Richards and Mick Jagger got in a sword fight, who would win? I think Keith. I have my reasons. Anyway, this is called Gimme Shelter. The headlights flickered through the various windows of the home, signaling my return. The last of the families on Cornelia Street had taken off into the wild blue yonder, and no one expected to see their smug faces again until mid-August. It was time to speak seriously on matters of the heart. Completely spent, I sluggishly entered the back door of the home and slid the keys across the recently scrubbed clean marble countertop. If anyone from the Jeffords family saw me do this, I'd be out on my ass with a quickness. Rubbing my eyes, I blinked rapidly in an attempt to stay awake for a bit longer. Most of the meeting's attendees were in similar states of collapse. The only thing keeping us all awake was the children's laughter from the backyard swimming pool. There's an old saying I remember my grandmother quoting quite a bit while I was growing up. When the cat's away, the mice will play. Well, it just so happened that we were all the mice, and the goddamn thankless cats were safely aboard various airplanes en route to their summer homes in Long Island, Pismo Beach, or Aspen. Surely 3 months would be enough time to concoct a plan unlike any other that came before in the lowland park neighborhood. Statistically, we were destined to fail, but there was no shame in trying. I mean, they surely couldn't arrest all of us when they returned, could they? I cleared my throat as loudly as possible so everyone would get the signal. All right, everyone, calm down and hear me out, I stated. I know 3 months seems like a long time to organize all this, but time will fly once we get started. Raoul, didn't you tell me earlier that you had some good ideas? Well, not so much a good idea as it is a power in numbers play, explained the family gardener from across the street, Raoul. Just then, Julia, the 7-year-old daughter of Juanita, the Crosby family maid, entered the room through the French doors which separated the kitchen from the backyard swimming pool. Wet feet slapped against the polished hardwood floor, leaving near invisible tracks from whence she came. "Mommy, I'm hungry," squealed Julia. "When are we going to eat dinner?" "In just a bit," revealed Juanita softly. "Now you and all the kids stay outside while the grown-ups are talking. I promise this will be over soon." With that, the shivering child turned tail and headed back to the sun-baked Texas warmth of the Jeffords family watering hole. A half-click signaled that the doors didn't shut all the way, still allowing a bit of high-pitched screams to sneak through the cracks. The next thing we all heard was a tiny splash, signaling the child was once again in the water. The meeting could commence. I glanced at Raoul for the continuation of his plan. None of us were quite ready for how presuming he'd been. "Well, to be honest, I say we just shoot the fuckers when they walk in." The air was quickly sucked out of the kitchen, and several of the attendees spit their various drinks across the countertops. Killian, the Miller family's driver, somehow managed to have a stout pint of beer come completely out of his nose and onto the floor below. Yes, it was the entire pint. Never mind the physics of the whole thing. Some men are just more talented than others. "And you don't think that's a good way for us to end up in jail, Raoul?" I thwarted his nonsense. "Sure, they're all a bunch of mean bastards, but none of them are worth killing. Some of us actually love these families." "Do we?" the aggressive driver fired back. "I think you have your love for humanity and your lust for money mixed up, my friend. None of these people care for us. We're just the help. It's about time they get their turn in the guest house." Juanita, still glancing over her shoulder to make sure her children stayed out of ear's reach, chimed in furiously. I could tell she was scared to death of the subject matter, but at least she had the guts to show up in the first place. I can't say that about too many of our neighbors. "You can't be serious, Raoul. You know how the cops in this place work. They'll take us out to the river one by one and float us down south. We'll be like a logjam somewhere near the coast. Hell, the same thing will happen if we just stand up to their madness like in the original plan. Why do you always have to take the violent route?" Pardon me. Juanita was 100% on par with Raul's thought process. Many times, he'd been the one most would call on to march an elderly dog to the back 40 and scatter its old brains across the flowery meadow. The wealthy families we all slaved for cared little for imperfections. Once that poor dog's ass began to get a little loose and poop stains adorned their fancy carpets, it was time to assist them to their oblivions. Raul was just the man for the job, too. He'd spent time in Iraq. His mind was damn near gone. The plan is for all of us to squat for the summer and then perform a mass exodus as soon as they return in August. We leave them high and dry when they're at their most vulnerable. As payback, Raul, payback. No one is killing anyone, you freak. The room suddenly turned sour as a few more of the help began to scoot away from Raul's place along the walk-in freezer. Why in the hell do these people need a walk-in freezer to begin with? This isn't a goddamn pizza restaurant, it's a house. Regardless, it appeared as though I was the last to know what truly rolled around in our resident veteran's brain. I was almost too frightened to inquire. Let me guess, I exhaled in disgust. You lied about taking the family to the airport and you've already killed them all. Raul pointed his nose to the floor in what could almost be interpreted as his shame, but I knew better. That scolded puppy look wasn't going to slide with me. He had some answering to do. I pressed harder. Don't give me the silent treatment, Raul, I shouted, watching him flinch like an impromptu child artist with a blank bedroom wall and a new box of crayons. I got excited, he exploded. Juanita glanced around the room at the remaining attendees who appeared to be gathering their belongings for a quick exit. Planning to milk a bunch of rich families while on their summer vacations was a far cry from doing whatever in the world Raul did with the people across the street. With minimal explanation, the Lowland Park workers took it upon themselves to initiate the silent treatment. Whatever information they didn't know was something they couldn't tell the authorities whenever they came looking for answers. I'm sure some of them would be heading back across the border just so they wouldn't have to deal with all the finger-pointing. Now, young Julia floated alone on her bright pink tube in the early summer moonlight, thumping unlucky bugs who were trapped in the heavily chlorinated water. The lack of youthful screams out back took our three-way conversation to strange depths. I'm willing to bet my soon-to-be non-existent paycheck that you shot them in their kitchen. I began down the impossible road through Raul's process. You're goddamn right I shot them in the kitchen, fired Raul. Those motherfuckers have made me clean red soda out of their carpets before, and I'll be damned if I was going to go through that bullshit again. Have you ever had to get an entire family's blood out of pure ivory-colored carpet? No, and neither have you, my scream echoed throughout the empty halls of the Jeffords home. There's a difference between cleaning soda out of the rug and a crime scene, you dumb bastard. No one will go to jail to be raped and eventually executed for spilling soda. Raul tended to be a little slow up top. All of us knew it, and we pooled our resources to make sure he didn't get bullied by either the wealthy adults or the bratty kids. Pay to play took on a whole new meaning in the rich neighborhoods. He was one hell of a target in a place like this. We figured driving the family car would be a task to keep him out of trouble and in America on a work visa. Now his choices were to run back to Juarez or die fighting with his virginity somewhere in a scalding hot Texas prison. Did I say that correct? Now his choices were to run back to Juarez or die fighting for his virginity somewhere in a scalding hot Texas prison. I did say that correctly. Oh. Sweat works well as a natural lubricant. His youthful, glistening butt wouldn't stand a chance. It's no big deal, Raul explained, arms spread wide as though he were brag measuring a fish he'd caught. We've got all summer long to clean that house and hide the bodies. It's a piece of cake. What's all this we shit? Asked Juanita. You shot and killed the people, so it would be you and your own family dealing with the damage. I have a kid, Raul. The last thing I want is for her to grow up alone without a mother or resort to taking my place as the housemaid. I want her to grow up, get an education, and have babies, not spend her days off visiting her mother in the penitentiary. You did the deed. You clean it up. This is truly not my problem. Oh, yes it is, Juanita, Raul growled in retort. Don't you act all coy with me. I asked you how best to deal with the damn family until they left for the summer, and you said to kill them. They were driving me insane. Juanita placed her hand atop her forehead as the epiphany unraveled. At first, she couldn't believe he'd taken her so literally, but a few moments of reflection showed her the truth in his legitimately innocent eyes. Never leave anything open to interpretation. With kindness, you fuck, attacked Juanita. I said for you to kill them with kindness until it came time for them to leave. Did you truly think I meant for you to line them up in their kitchen and execute them for making you clean red soda out of their carpet? How in the French fried fuck did you even manage to be in the United States Army? Joke's on you, bitch, he responded, clearly offended. Almost everyone in the Army is a psychopath. Basically, all we did was sit around in our spare time, discuss violent shit, and perfect our craft. Plus, it was the easiest way to get citizenship. The arguing voices of Raul and Juanita faded to silence in my overstimulated brain. What began as a simple plan to live like American success stories for the summer and then disappear into a sea of nameless faces fell to the floor with a crash. Everyone came to me for answers on this night. I'd hinted throughout the year that I'd organized a plan to solve all our problems, but no one was watching Raul. He was like an infant. If you didn't hold his hand from time to time, the bastard would wander out into the street and get slaughtered by oncoming traffic. Personally, I blame myself for this mess. Being the responsible individual that I was, it was time for me to claim the chaos. The master plan was to show our children what it would be like to live in the shoes of American high society. When the summer ended and the families returned from their lengthy vacations, we would no longer be here to clean their underwear and wipe their asses. We'd take them for everything we could and then silently return to our home countries with enough combined wealth to put those children through college. Our family's tradition of poverty and living in squalor would cease during their generation. To put it in simpler terms, Raul done went and fucked the whole thing up. And now, we either have a time jump or a change of perspective. I think it's a time jump. Yeah. The summer sunset became darkened skies only moments before I stepped outside. Frogs were singing horny songs of "Come and Get It" in the slowly drying rain pools of the woods beyond the family's privacy fence. A few fireflies speckled the night sky, temporarily illuminating portions of the finely manicured lawn. I'd managed to finish the mowing a couple of hours before our meeting began, and the air was still heavy with the scent of fresh-cut grass. Well, fresh-cut grass mixed with the stinging waft of swimming pool chlorine. The last place you'd want to begin an argument is in a rich person's kitchen. It is basically nothing but wall-to-wall knives and cast-iron skillets. Juanita really hadn't done anything wrong, but she was fairly weak-willed, which didn't bode well for the questioning of the families or the police interrogations destined to follow. Sure, all the blame would go to Raul, but she and I both knew he'd run at the first sign of trouble. Eventually, the Lowland Park police would want to punish someone to please the residents of Cornelia Street. They rarely cared to learn our names, those wealthy villains disguised as the face of the American dream turned nightmare. All that mattered would be the target of their rage toward brown faces. Lighter or darker was inconsequential, but the Jeffords family surely wouldn't want to be the ones who sentenced a woman to death. I, on the other hand, couldn't care less about skin color or sex. One set of loose lips was enough to send me to the needle. I only stabbed her once. Once was all it took. Raul put up a bit of a fight. Unfortunately, I wanted it that way. Everything needed to look as though a struggle took place once I discovered he'd murdered his own family and began to kill the help in the surrounding homes. There was no way to prove otherwise. Soon, all the other maids, gardeners, and chauffeurs who left the meeting would get their chance to go on record regarding Raul's confession. Not that I cared, but I'd be branded the hero who stopped the Cornelia Street massacre and returned safety to a neighborhood rocked by controversy. Unstable mental health mixed with PTSD was an unfortunate scapegoat, but a worthy one nonetheless. The final loose end now floated at my feet in an ever-spreading pool of her own blood. The newspaper stories would read far and wide that I couldn't act quickly enough to save a brown child, but it meant everyone else's Aryan assholes would live to see the light of another day. Yes, from this moment on, I managed to be the man who happened upon Raoul's killing spree, but I wasn't quick enough to save the family across the street, Juanita the maid and her young daughter. That angel happened to be enjoying the family pool. An eternity of damnation lay in waiting upon my final breath, but I have a long way to go between now and the coffin. In the meantime, I could learn to live with myself for killing a child and her mother. Practice makes perfect if I've got a few months to get my story straight. Until then, no entiendo inglés until the translator arrives to interpret for the Super Caucasian police force. War, children. It's just a shot away. One man's terror is another man's tension relief. The vacation's been canceled. My final thought before pulling out my cell phone was that poor little Julia didn't get a chance to eat her dinner. This is why I don't have kids. It's hard enough to keep up with myself. Gimme love, gimme life, gimme shelter. There's always enough time for hand washing in the morning light. Just ask anyone on Cornelia Street. Well, anyone except for the help. It's only dirty deeds if you get caught, and classism thwarts those who lose the game. I'll be goddamned if I let some orphan ruin my summer. And that is my short story, Gimme Shelter. You can find that, as well as a few more in my collection called Haunted Spaghetti, because creepypasta sounds stupid. It is on Amazon. I also have them at revdaircloud.com. I got them right here within reach, actually. I could put it in the mail today. Anyway, guys, I don't like to beg, though. I mean, sure, I write and sell books. I'm horrible at that part. I'm horrible at the PR. I'm horrible at, like, sales and advertising and stuff like that. So, you pay for it from time to time, but that gets expensive. But also, man, I don't do this stuff for the money. Seriously. I want this so, like, after I'm dead, my grandchildren can use it as a come up. Oh yeah? Well, my grandpa was Rev Dare Cloud. Bitches. Preach truth, toke jokes, shoplift Amazon. You know what? Next week, oh my God. Next week is my short story, Hellfire and Blood. And I'm going to warn you in advance. I do one of the most gruesome things I have ever done to a character in a story in that book. So, next week, tread with caution. Thank you guys for listening. Y'all have a wonderful day.